Welcome to Connecticut's Health Report. Episode 11, Before the First Bell, What Parents Should Know About Back-to-School Vaccines. With Connecticut Department of Public Health Commissioner, Dr. Manisha Juthani. Because being informed is the first step to being protected.
Good health doesn't just happen, it's built. The last time you buckled your seatbelt, did you think about it before you did it? Or turned on the tap and drank the water without a second thought? Or got a vaccine that protected not just you, but everyone around you? None of that happened by accident. Someone fought for it, proved it worked, and put data to action. Welcome to Connecticut's Health Report. I'm your host, Brittany Schaefer, and I'm joined by Department of Public Health Commissioner Manisha Juthani and also Chief Marketing Officer Maura Fitzgerald. Today, back to school season is here, and we're talking vaccines and a new approach to reach families where they are at. DPH launched a new Schoolhouse Rock-type video series called Protect Who Matters Most. Let's get right into it. For listeners who haven't seen it yet, what is Protect Who Matters Most, and what inspired DPH to create it, Commissioner?
So the idea of this really came from a recognition that we actually saw on social media posts where families were presenting questions like, wouldn't it be great if you could have just a portion of a virus, not the whole virus, injected into somebody and the person could develop their own immunity? Wouldn't that be better than a vaccine? Now, many vaccines, that's actually what they're trying to do. They're trying to simulate infection. And that made us realize that vaccines have been around for so long now that there may be a fundamental lack of information and understanding on what vaccines actually are and what they actually do. And so we thought back to this Schoolhouse Rock series of videos that people saw decades and decades ago, but that made it through the test of time, and that a lot of people learned about civic life through that video series. That what if we created a similar type of video series helping to answer people's questions about what vaccines are, what they do, and how they can really help protect who matters most.
And Maura, you really spearheaded this project from beginning to end. What was the video production like, and who is the series really speaking to?
The video production was so much fun. Just such a creative way to convey public health messages to people in a way that's very different from how we've ever really done it before. And the series really speaks to kind of the people in the middle, people who, there are people who are all in and gangbusters on vaccines. There are people who, for a variety of reasons are just, very anti-vaccine. And then there's a lot of people in the middle who are hearing information coming at them from all different sides. And it's kind of hard to know what's real and what's not. And so we made this series to be a very non-judgmental way of saying, hey, it's okay to have questions about vaccines. Here's a little bit of information, what you can give in a very catchy, 1 minute long song. And here's a link to, a place that you can go to learn more and talk to your physician, talk to your child's pediatrician if you have questions.
And how are we ensuring that all audiences are reached with this?
Well, we're putting it out on multiple channels. Right now, the series is in English, but we are in the process of transcreating the series into Spanish, which means it's not just a straight, word-for-word translation. It's being done like in a culturally appropriate way so that, the meaning remains the same and, we can get it out to people speaking in Spanish language.
So important.
Yeah.
So let's talk timing. Why launch this campaign in July, just ahead of back to school season?
And so this is a time when people are getting back into the back to school season and trying to think about all the things they need to do to be caught up and get their kids ready to go to school, whether it be buying a new backpack and lunchbox and making sure they're all up to date on the things that they need for school, including their vaccinations. And so this video series is intended to catch people's attention while they're thinking about those things, because this is a time when a lot of people are going into pediatricians' offices or providers' offices for all those back to school initiatives. And so this is a good time also before respiratory viral disease season, where we have flu shots and COVID shots and other things as well, where people can ask those questions of their providers if they have them. Because really asking questions is the way you can really answer the questions that matter to you most. And for many people, that's all they're looking for. They're looking for an honest dialogue about what they can do to help protect their kids.
In Connecticut's kindergarten MMR vaccination rate is 98.6%, the highest in the nation. What does that number mean to you, and how do we protect it?
Well, I'm very proud of all of the work of public health providers, practitioners, families who understand the importance of, if you go to a congregate setting, a setting where there are a lot of people together, which is our public and private schools, that is the way kids can protect each other and protect the staff who are in the building as well. And so that does not happen by accident. It's a lot of collective work over a prolonged period of time. And we did see a dip in vaccination rates in COVID, but unlike some other states, we've been able to see a build back up to levels and even higher than we were before COVID. So I think that's been a reflection of the collective work that we have done as a society to protecting each other.
As you've stated, luckily Connecticut is doing really well, all rounded with vaccinations. But what have we seen in areas where vaccination rates have dipped?
So we know that with all of these diseases, if you have lower vaccination rates, there's just a greater percent of the population that could be at risk for getting some of the infections that we can protect against. Now, we know there are plenty of infections that we don't have vaccines for. And so then we don't even have a strategy other than things like covering your secretions if you're coughing and washing hands, all the things that people learned how to do well during the COVID pandemic. But for the series of infections where we do have vaccines, that's something that can really be done to intercept that process. Now, what we know in Connecticut is that we had one case of measles in December of 2025. We had one case in 26, and then unfortunately a subsequent case from somebody who was infected by being exposed to that first person, but it was a milder case because that person was vaccinated. And that's it that we've seen so far. So again, the fact that that transmission process was interrupted speaks to the very high vaccination rate we have in the state. And in states where there are pockets of lower vaccination rates like that, unfortunately, they've seen outbreaks that have continued for longer and have required more public health intervention to interrupt that cycle. And so that's one of the benefits that we've seen.
And now the U.S. has seen the largest outbreak in measles in over 3 decades. So let's get practical for parents listening right now. What are some of the required vaccines that parents may be having questions about right now, and why are they important?
So we know, for example, measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine is one that children get starting when they are a year old and then get 2 series of that in childhood. And right now we're seeing measles outbreaks throughout the country, so it's certainly something top of mind for a lot of people. But we also know, for example, that there are vaccines like the chickenpox vaccine, which many adults may have gotten chickenpox when you were a child yourself. But what we have really seen with the institution of the chickenpox vaccine is that we have a generation of kids who've grown into adulthood who've never had to have chickenpox. Now, for adults who have maybe had the shingles when you were older in life, we again have a shingles vaccine where people can prevent getting that. But that is a very painful infection. And the fact that we are protecting our children from larger outbreaks from chickenpox and preventing potentially having consequences like shingles later in life is a really, really important intervention that's been done. Other examples, for example, hepatitis B, there's been a lot of discussion around getting that first dose soon after birth. But this is actually a vaccine that prevents liver cancer. It's not just about protecting yourself from getting hepatitis, which is an infection, but hepatitis B is one of the greatest risk factors for getting liver cancer later in life. And we have seen over generations how our liver cancer rates have plummeted in the United States because of the institution, in part, of that hepatitis B vaccine. Hepatitis A, people think of getting that from contaminated food or water. And when you're traveling, again, we have seen such a reduction in those types of infections because kids are getting vaccinated when they're going to school.
So beneficial. And how do medical or religious exemptions work here in Connecticut?
So several years ago, religious exemptions in order to go to school were no longer permissible for entry into our public and private schools. And so what we have seen is that there are children who are grandfathered with religious exemptions. So there are still some children who have religious exemptions, but each year they get older. And so we see a reduction in religious exemptions among children who are our youngest. However, medical exemptions are permissible. That is at the discretion of the provider. The department does not adjudicate those medical exemptions in any way. What we do is track them. And so providers do need to submit forms to us so that we can see what the medical exemptions were for, and we generate a report to the legislature every year so that this is something that they can monitor as well, since it was a law that they passed.
Now, before we wrap up, I'd love to hear from both of you more. I'll start with you. What's your hope for families as they watch these videos and start the new school year?
I hope that families, first of all, will enjoy them, maybe have a little dance party in their houses with their kids, because the songs are a lot of fun and the videos themselves are extremely colorful and entertaining. And I hope that parents will take away from them that it is perfectly okay for them to have questions about vaccines, and, they can come to the Department of Public Health, to our website, and learn more about it, or they can talk to their pediatricians and their physicians and learn more about it that way. But there's nothing wrong at all with having questions, and you just got to go to the right places to get the answers.
And the dancing is, you need to. And I think there's also sing-along versions as well.
Yes.
Sing, dance, have
Sing,
fun.
dance.
They're
We have
so
coloring
catchy.
books. Very catchy. Very catchy.
We say they're in our heads all day. Commissioner, what is one thing you hope people take away from today?
It was really important to me to make sure we had different types of genre of music so that everybody can see themselves in these videos and in this music. So there's indie pop and electro pop and 90s hip hop music and Latin music. So we wanted to speak to people across Connecticut and potentially across the country to be able to say these questions are natural for parents who really are only trying to do best by their children, and everybody can have them. And so we hope that everybody sees themselves in these videos. If you've got Little B here, Little B is our little B cell who introduces himself in one of the videos and makes it a fun and lively interactive experience. And a lot of times when you do that, it makes this intervention less of something so external and potentially scary, and something more relatable, and something that even the children can hopefully see themselves in.
Such a unique and fun approach to this topic. Thank you both so much for joining me today. And to everyone listening, you can watch all 4 Protect Who Matters Most videos in English and coming in Spanish on the DPH website. They are fun to watch and very informative. If you have questions about your child's immunization record or school requirements, reach out to your child's healthcare provider or go to CT Wiz for access to immunization records. This is Connecticut's Health Report.
Thanks for joining us. Catch the full video on YouTube and stay connected with us on social media for the latest on health in CT. See you next episode.